The topic that I chose for this assignment was boys and girls. They are the same, aren't they? Doing this paper, I realized that boys and girls are similar in a lot of different areas, but in a lot of areas they're also the same. But the differences seem to be more prevalent, especially in the earlier years, such as their preschool years. So we're talking about why boys struggle with school. According to the United States Department of Education, boys have consistently scored lower in reading than girls for 30 years, all ages and everywhere. More boys are likely to be in special education in school than girls, and boys are more likely to be held back by the eighth grade than girls by 50%. More boys spend time in the principal's office than girls. They suggested proposal as to why this happens goes back to a child's preschool years. If they aren't interested in what's offered, then boys have a tough time stopping what they are doing to jump on board with the next activity. So, meaning girls are more prone to jump on board and stop and see what's going on. And if they like it, they'll go ahead and jump on board with the activity that's being done. But if boys aren't interested from a distance, they won't even stop what they're doing to even see if they're going to like it or not. Girls are more prone to follow the teacher's commands, whether they really want to or not, and therefore they get praised for following directions. However, if a boy gets scolded and put in time out for not following direction, then he becomes more aggressive, non-attentive, and non-compliant. This makes the boys feel like the teachers don't like them, as well as they may like the girls. Girls are not better than boys, and boys are not better than girls, but they are very different, especially in groups as well. So if a boy is doing an activity alone, he is peaceful and content. He isn't loud and he isn't bothering anyone. However, if a group of boys are playing, then more than likely they're loud and they are going to be very competitive. They're aggressive. This is because their activity level is higher than it is for girls. When girls play in groups, they usually stick together, and they also tend not to make as much noise as boys do. So they aren't as competitive as boys, if they're even competitive at all. They play as friends. They get along for the most part. Girls usually are more nurturing than boys. You can see the girls in the home center playing and nurturing the dolls and washing the dishes and doing things of that nature. Whereas the boys are more than likely playing with blocks and things of that nature, being more aggressive. So boys are more mobile and active but from mostly the large muscle. They use the whole body realm. This does not mean that girls are passive, though. So girls are more uncomfortable with the unfamiliar. Boys will take a challenge, whereas girls kind of shy away from it a little bit. So while boys are practicing dominant, dependent skills, preschool girls are developing their so-called intimate dependent skills. So they're seeking the physical touch and support, and especially when they're exploring new places and experiences, they are more of the emotional kind. They want the touch and support from the teachers and things. Another article that I read was called Bringing Boys and Girls Together, This says, during the early years, friendships might appear to be constantly changing. We see 3-year-olds show preferences for playing with certain classmates. But at this age, a friend is pretty much anyone a child spends time with. They don't really make a whole lot of difference between each other, but it's whoever they spend more time with, that's who they consider their friend. Boys and girls both will go and they'll seek out a friend that is playing with something that they're interested in. So a lot of time they base their friendships on, what they're playing with or what they look like, and things of that nature. Both boys and girls also seem to develop friendships just because someone is in close proximity to them. Boys seem to be more aggressive than girls in their play when they are playing in a group. Girls seem to be quieter. However, there are some girls who are just as loud as boys, and there are some boys who are actually, they want to play quietly. As early as the preschool years, children tend to play with and befriend same-sex companions. This is known as gender segregation. Some adults dismiss gender segregation as just something children do, but one concern is that boys and girls may be socializing in different ways, learning and practicing relationship skills in isolation from one another. A lot of people, the researchers, stood back and watched this behavior, and they were wondering if it's really healthy for the boys to play with only boys and the girls to play with only girls, and they would suggest that teachers try and come up with an activity that involves, both genders, both male and female. Groups of preschool boys tend to be larger, and they often play further from adults and engage in more active play than girls' groups. Behaviors that are acceptable to the group of boys may not be acceptable for the group of girls. This could possibly impact the success of interactions when children do come together. Researchers find that preschoolers who spend the most time in same-sex play are the most gender stereotypical in their behaviors. So the more time they spend playing with their friends of their own sex, then they become stereotypical about the other gender. This includes aggression and activity levels in play with sex-type toys and in sex-type activities. We teachers should make sure that there aren't any gender-biased, materials in our classrooms, because this can make children believe that certain jobs are for women or certain jobs are for men, when it's not like that at all. Both boys and girls are natural sorters. They tend to group people and things into simple categories in order to make sense of their world. Teachers are in a unique position to help boys and girls to come together. So teachers, we can plan, different experiences to help the boys and the girls, to be sociable with each other. Like I said, we can plan different activities where they can come together and let them know that, we don't have to be gender biased, and that there are really no boy toys versus girl toys, that, toys and materials are just toys and materials. As far as family life, all children engage in pretend play. However, the themes of this play tend to differ between sexes. Most boys assume the role of a heroic character when they play, and they engage in fantasy activities that involve danger. They may want to wear a cape or some superhero costume, play with swords, make guns, they want to wrestle with their peers. They also pretend to be figures of authority, such as police officers, ambulance drivers, soldiers, and they even want to play like they're cowboys. So during the play, the girls are less likely to have a physical fight with their peers. Instead, the girls will try to work out their differences. They'll try to talk about it instead of, fighting about it. They are less likely to yell at each other, because maintaining a relationship is very important to a female. So maintaining the relationship is way more important than arguing about it. Okay, girls often take turns more than boys do. Children learn from their play, so it is important that toys aren't stereotyped, like I said earlier, and labeled as being boy toys or girl toys. Okay, both boys and girls are social beings, but there is a distinct difference of how they socialize. So boys need a peer group in which they can be a part of a group where they can relax, but they need to feel powerful as well. They tend to choose friends who have interests similar to their own. Boys are likely to play outdoors with friends, and they tend to want to hang in a group. Girls are likely, on the other hand, to have personal identities tied to their friendships, which are basically other girls. Their sense of self is the opposite of boys. A girl's sense of self is organized around being able to make and maintain a relationship. So more than boys, girls appreciate and they need connections to other people. Girls are more likely to have a best friend, although their friends vary and change. We know the children will say, "This is my best friend," one minute, and the next minute they're fighting. But then at the end of the day, they're best friends again, or someone else has become their best friend until they make them upset, and then, they'll reclaim the other best friend. Research says that teachers treat boys and girls differently. Academic expectations tend to be higher for boys. Both teachers and parents expect them to do better in school. Boys are called upon more in class. They also seem to get more time and praise from the teacher. Boys do better than girls in visual tasks. This explains why boys are so attracted to video games. Boys, though, are more likely to have learning disabilities and problems with language. School-age girls have some advantages over the boys, though. The girls seem to be able to pay attention longer than the boys. Their verbal skills also tend to mature earlier, and girls also do better in English and in math than the boys. Both boys and girls require plenty of opportunities for physical play. More children of both sexes are participating in organized sports. These activities help both boys and girls develop self-esteem, discipline, and they teach social skills. However, boys are more interested in sports than girls are. Boys tend to wear t-shirts with the name of their favorite teams on them or collect trading cards. Whereas boys are wearing sports jerseys, girls are doing more the princess thing. They want to dress like the princesses that they see in the movies and the different, female princess characters and things of that nature. I also read a paper on do boys and girls express their emotions differently. Tara M. Chaplin of the Department of Psychiatry, at Yale University School of Medicine, did a study and found out that boys and girls have very different emotional tendencies, but they fluctuate depending on age and context. Her study suggests that there are small but significant gender differences in emotional expressions, with larger gender differences emerging at certain ages and in certain contexts. Okay, she found that in the infancy stage, the boys and girls exhibited similar emotional displays, but as the children got older, the differences began to emerge. She found out that girls internalized their emotions more than the boys, but they displayed more positive emotions. So girls have a higher rates of anxiety and sadness than boys do, but they express more cheerfulness and joy on the outside. Boys are more likely to exhibit anger and aggression. When children are around their parents, the emotional difference between boys and girls are almost non-existent. This could be because children feel comfortable around their parents and are able to express a wide range of emotions. So Chaplin says that children may feel the need to conform in school or social settings and thus internalize their emotions. Emotional expressions change as children mature. A child's emotion is heavily influenced by family environment, social factors, and other external factors. As children develop, they will display a wide range of emotions. Chaplin also says that some emotions should be of concern. Now, if children tend to be aggressive and feel joy when they are provide the opportunity to taunt or tease another child, then this behavior could increase the risk for the child to engage in bullying. And bullying is such a big thing now, and I mean, it's to be discouraged. So typically girls show more guilt and shame. If not corrected, these emotions could lead to depression and self-harm. It is important to be able to identify which expressions are normal and which are signs of concern. So we have to know what aggression is really, bothersome, which one is going to harm somebody else, so that we can put a stop to it, or if it's just aggression that they, are feeling frustrated or whatever. Okay, when boys and girls of the same age get together, it is easy to focus on the differences of how they think and act rather than the similarities. The stereotype is that girls tend to focus on feelings and boys tend to focus on actions. However, this is not true of every child. Watching most children play does display these results, but we should try to steer away from stereotypes. As far as verbal skills, girls begin to talk sooner, but boys will later catch up. The average 20-month-old girl has twice the vocabulary of the average 20-month-old boy. Boys will catch up later, even if nothing is done to try to enhance their vocabulary. They are just naturally learning language slower than girls. So girls are likely to have something to say, whereas boys need to be encouraged to speak. Boys are more likely to be diagnosed with language difficulties, including stuttering, handwriting, and reading problems. Boys have more trouble reading, but it seems to be when they are reading aloud. On reading tests, boys and girls performed the same as long as the test didn't require writing. When they did require writing, boys had way more trouble in the writing area. And girls, it's been shown, are more than likely to read for pleasure, whereas boys, they're not going to too much read for pleasure, but the girls will. Boys have a greater activity in the portion of the brain associated with spatial skills. Boys are more likely to easily learn physical activities involving spatial knowledge, mental rotation, the ability to see dimensional objects in your mind and to be able to match the original object with a picture of a rotated view of the same object is the primary spatial skill at which males are frequently better than females, and this comes from James. This is why boys are drawn to playing and are better at playing video games than females are. Perceptual speed is a visual task where girls have the edge. Girls are better at matching objects and pictures and stuff. They're also better at proofreading. They are better at finding errors. So girls are typically better at matching stuff very quick. as opposed to boys who are drawn to playing video games because their spatial abilities are better than girls. Most girls will begin with words, either spoken or written, as their primary source of information. Boys are more likely to learn better when they can manipulate or view the material. So boys seems to be more hands-on than girls. If a teacher begins a lesson by asking the children to read, boys may not catch on as quick. If a teacher begins a lesson by demonstrating something, then the girls find it difficult to understand. So boys tend to be labeled as having a learning disability more often than girls. How children learn determines how well a child will do in school. Most of the time, if the girls have some type of learning disability, it will be caught later on, whereas opposed to boys who they will diagnose or figure it out right quick. This essay was very interesting to me. I didn't realize that boys and girls were that much different. I knew that they were in a lot of ways alike, but the learning abilities, that really kind of, blew me away, not knowing that the learning abilities were that much different. I kind of knew about the aggression in the playing because boys tend to be louder and they tend to be more aggressive than, girls and everything. But this was a very good research to do because I learned quite a bit about the difference between boys and girls. So, are boys and girls the same, or are they really different? You be the judge.